first of all, thanks for this thing, right? For whatever problems we faced, right? And I look forward to our bigger interaction going forward whenever you're fine. But since I have to ask one question, I think that'll also take you back in time, right? So I was reading an article recently from your friend and value investor Vitali Kate-Sellinson, right, on why he visits Omaha every year to attend the Berkshire annual meeting. And he wrote how for him the meeting has become the least important event of the Berkshire weekend, and that Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger are not the main attraction anymore, but the fact that the meeting brings together around 40,000 value investors, which is a rare opportunity to meet old friends from around the world and also nurture new friendship. So you have been attending the meeting for a few years now, except for the last 2 years when the meeting was only broadcast online due to COVID restrictions. And you will be there in Omaha later this month to attend in person again. So Guy, what has the Berkshire meeting come to stand for you? I have never attended it, though I plan to attend it sometime in the future. But was it what it is like to be there? Like, what are the biggest lessons that you've learned by just attending that one meeting for the last few years?
Oh, thank you, Vishal. And it's a fantastic question. And it is a timely question because as we speak, I'm in preparations to fly out to Omaha. On Monday, I will fly to Chicago, and then I'll be in Omaha for a period of 4 or 5 days. And I've given your question an awful lot of thought. And so I have lots to say about it, or some things to say about it. And I'm really glad and grateful to share. So there's a podcast by a guy, the name of the podcast is called Entrepreneur on Fire. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember his name. He's a lovely guy. But at the end of the podcast, what he always says is, you are the sum of the 5 people you hang out with the most. And, that idea can be expressed in different ways. And now I'm going to express it maybe a more scientific way. But there's a guy called Nicholas Christakis who's written about how in the study of disease and how can you predict or who will get what diseases or who's more likely to get a disease. So, it's the simple idea of obesity and who is more or less likely to be obese. And obviously you have things like, if you eat more sugar, if you have a higher amount of calories in your diet, if you have a sedentary, all of those things are predictors of obesity. They're not perfect predictors, but they predict obesity with a very high degree of certainty. But what Christakis looked at was, what about your social networks? Is there anything about one's social networks that predict obesity? And his answer was, it's not overwhelmingly significant. It's certainly one of the factors, but there is a clear predictive capacity. If you're in a network of people who are obese, you are more likely to be obese. And if you're in a network of people who are not obese, you're less likely to be obese. And the question, and I realize that from a statistical standpoint, there's a question of causation, and I don't want to get into it because I'm not a statistician, but the clear conclusion that I took away from Christakis's writing on the topic is that who you're in a social network with will determine your health or will have an influence on your health. And so and we can imagine if there is a causative mechanism, why that would be. So if I have friends who all like cycling on a Saturday morning, then I'm more likely to go cycling on a Saturday morning. And if I'm more likely to go cycling on a Saturday morning, then I'm more likely to be less obese. And so, but if on the other hand, all my friends are couch potatoes and what they tend to do on a Saturday morning is make plans to watch the Sunday football game and drink lots of beers over the whole weekend, then I'm more likely to engage in those activities. So we can easily see and understand that there will be a transmission mechanism. And I actually happen to believe that those network effect, it's not network effect as in Reed, Metcalfe's law, any of those things. It's the power of being in a network. And so and I'm going to come to your question on the Berkshire meeting. Forgive me if this is a long detour into that. But if we then talk about the networks that are created through the educational establishments that we go into, I think that one of the most powerful impacts of a social network, a school, an alumni network is it's not that, we went to the same school. Let's say, imagine, Vishal, that you and I went to the same school and now we help each other. It's more in the direction of, wow, I was at college with that guy. If he can do it, I can do it. I was at college with the guy who was the Prime Minister of the UK. I think that makes me believe that I'm more capable of achieving great things because that schmuck who I was at school with became Prime Minister. Mm-hmm. So there's a kind of like an impact on our thinking. And so then we go to, let's just talk about religious pilgrimages, because a pilgrimage is originally a religious idea. And I don't know an enormous amount about Islam, but every Muslim should once in his lifetime make the Hajj and visit Mecca. And so obviously, if we just take that example, there is the physical act of taking yourself to Mecca and being at the Kaaba and circling around. But I think that there's so much more to it, which is all the things that happen when you go on the pilgrimage. And so the Canterbury Tales, told by Geoffrey Chaucer in the UK. So Canterbury was a site for pilgrimages in the UK, and people would come from all over England, and they would pilgrimage to Canterbury, where there was a cathedral, and they told each other tales along the way. And I think that when you go on a pilgrimage, when those people went on pilgrims in those days, they were yes, there was the end goal of visiting the Kaaba, there was the end goal of reaching Canterbury Cathedral, but it was also an act of dedication to a certain set of values, a certain set of Muslim values, a certain set of Christian values, and it was also an act of putting yourself into a community of people who are dedicated to those values. And you already met those people. You didn't have to be at Canterbury Cathedral, you didn't have to be in Mecca. You would meet those people on your journey too. And so the Canterbury Tales are told by a group of pilgrims who are on their way to Canterbury. And so I think that I see the Berkshire Hathaway meeting in the light of those ideas. And so I think that when I go to Berkshire Hathaway, I am making a modern day pilgrimage. I'm making, and what does that mean for me, I guess, is sort of like to bring these floating ideas home. In the act of deciding to go on an annual basis to the Berkshire Hathaway meeting, I'm dedicating myself to a certain set of values, a way of seeing the world, a way of acting in the world that is exemplified by our heroes and masters, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger. And like a pilgrimage, the act of doing it dedicates myself to that. Like a pilgrimage, when I go to Berkshire Hathaway, it already starts with talking to people here in Zurich about who's going and who's not, and maybe have a meeting, a get-together beforehand. And then I'll be on the flight from Chicago to Omaha, and I'll walk onto the plane, and I will no doubt run into people that I know from Berkshire, or I'll meet new people that I know. And now, what is the significance of those people? Why are they important? Well, those 40,000 people, from whom I'm going to meet some of them, are a highly selective group of people. That's not just the average of the population. That is way better than the average of the population, because they're all people, all imperfect, all at different stages of their journey, but all who have already decided that they also want to make that pilgrimage, that they also want to live their lives a little bit more the way Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett did. And so I think that, and you can see how from the kind of Entrepreneur on Fire, John Lee Dumas is his name, or from Nicholas Christakis, that act of putting yourself into that community and making that journey and dedicating yourself to that in a kind of a physical way by actually taking time out of your life and taking the time to journey there. Because of that sort of what we talked about obesity, when I started this little mini talk, I don't know what you want to call it, that has an impact on us. And so actually when I'm going to Omaha, I believe that I am acting on my destiny. So John Lee Dumas says you're the sum of the 5 people you hang out with. An act like that, an act of going on pilgrimage, has the power to change your destiny. And so we should think very carefully about what pilgrimages we go on in life and why we're doing them. So there were some people that I knew growing up who were Grateful Dead fans of the Grateful Dead rock group. Jerry Lee Garcia was one, and one of the members of the Grateful Dead. So when they would follow the Grateful Dead around, in a certain way, they were dedicating themselves to something and making themselves a part of a community. I mean, I'm sure they were very enthusiastic about that community. And I'm not saying they're bad people, but it's not a community that I would choose to dedicate myself to. There's a lot of rock music, and there's a lot of drugs and alcohol and general, not things, they're not evil things, but they're not things that I want to dedicate myself to. And I think that kind of thinking can really, influence one's life in so many ways. Actually, when we go to a university, what we're doing is we're becoming a part of a learning community. And it's far harder to study when you're outside of those communities, because there are all these subtle mechanisms by which we become more like those people, in the same way that there are all sorts of subtle mechanisms by which I become better at investing, more like Warren Buffett, with the same mindset when I conduct that pilgrimage. And I think that maybe I'll close with this thought. It's not enough just to go. It's not enough to be there, because there are, I don't know how many people live in Omaha. They're just there. You actually have to have the intent of doing it. I am doing this with the intent. And I think that what I want to share with whoever listens to this is that I'm using the word pilgrimage, but many people will discard that word because they'll say, oh, that's religious mumbo jumbo. But don't think of it as religious mumbo jumbo. Think about it as, we all want to live better lives, but what are the tools that we have to live better lives? A pilgrimage is a tool to help us live better lives. And maybe if you're listening to this and you're not a fan of Warren and Charlie, think about what you do value, and then maybe conduct a pilgrimage to that. And, it might be that you love great writers and that you love people who think about the world and write about the world, in which case I would urge you to make an annual pilgrimage, for example, to the Hay Festival in the UK, which is, I believe, the world's largest English book-speaking festival. Or if you can't make it to the UK, in India, I believe in Jaipur, there is a book festival every year, which is an amazing book festival. If you're in Mexico, it's in Guadalajara, Mexico every year. If you're a deep, diehard fan of ideas worth sharing, you might want to make as I am, you might want to make an annual pilgrimage to the TED conference every year, or similar. And so this idea of pilgrimage and dedicating your life to the things you really care about can get you places. And obviously, Vishal, you and I are, and these things are not mutually exclusive. I was just at the TED conference. So, it's not like I'm just at the Berkshire Hathaway meeting. But that if I had to choose between the Berkshire Hathaway and the TED meeting, I would choose the Berkshire Hathaway meeting over the TED meeting, because I think it has a more deep and profound, has had and has the capacity to have a more deep and profound impact on my life. And it's a key tool. So I would just add, because I'll stop there. You got me on a great question, because, and it's kind of like, it's great, Vishal, because I'm about to go to Berkshire Hathaway within the next few days. I'm going to start making my pilgrimage to Berkshire. And you've given me an opportunity to express the intent, which is so important, to really get the most out of it. So thank you for allowing me the opportunity to do that. And I hope that is helpful for your guests. And forgive me if I belabor this point, and I really will close with this point, but Vishal took a couple of minutes beforehand when I kind of said, Vishal, why do people want to listen to this? And I think he gave me a far better idea. And so, wherever you are in the world, wherever you are in your life, I think that there's a feeling that I've come across, that people feel powerless, and they feel powerless to act, to make real change in their lives, to make real progress and long-lasting progress. And then, Vishal, what happens is that people look at me and they say, yeah, you're different, because you're maybe successful, or you already run a pile of money, or whatever it is. And they say, I can't do what you're doing. What I want to share with whoever it is who's listening to this is that I promise you that somebody in my shoes feels in so many ways as helpless as you do. And we may be helpless on a slightly bigger stage, slightly more elevated stage, a stage which maybe has nicer furnishings. But at the end of the day, we have the limitations of our humanity. Each one of us has only 2 hands. Each one of us only has 24 hours in a day, and we can continue. And so what determines why some people make more progress than others, why people, and there is an enormous amount of luck, certainly, but I think that what I see, and I think, Vishal, I don't think you'd disagree with me, is that the people who make progress identify these tools, like the tool of pilgrimage, and they put it to use. They realize that they need to pick this up and put it to their own use. And so, don't lose the tool of pilgrimage. It's a powerful force in your life. Thank you, Vishal, for giving me the chance to answer the most spectacular question you could have asked.
Thanks, Guy. I think like we began, right? You asking me, why do I host this podcast, right? What's the purpose behind the 1% show? And so for me, I think you gave me a wonderful insight over there, the term pilgrimage, right? Without all the religious things, right? So to put my answer better now, right? Given the insight that you've offered me. So for me, each episode of this show is like that mini pilgrimage, right? To the people who I admire, to people who have inspired me in my life. And so that I can pass along their inspirations, their learnings, their life lessons, their way of thinking, their way of learning and growing up in life, right? Just to live a good life. With so many others, thousands and thousands of people like you and me who also feel powerless at certain points of their life, right? So maybe just one idea from you, maybe just one idea from a guest, right? In the entire our conversation or 2-hour conversation can change the trajectory of life for someone, right? So that's the purpose of the 1% show. So even if this show goes on for say 2 hours or 3 hours, right? That one idea or one big idea which can change your life, just 1%, right? And that can really help you move ahead in life and grow in life and also help the others around you in life. So that mini pilgrimage for me, month after month, is something which I'm willing to take. The kind of people I want to host on this show, right, are those people who've inspired me the most and whom I admire a lot. And you're one among them. So thank you so much for the time. And thank you for turning this session, which was supposed to go for long, but for the tech issue, into a brilliant session for me. So I think this happened for the good, right? That I got a chance to ask you just one question, because you've left me with one big insight, and that's enough for me to think about, to ponder, to chew upon till the time we meet the next time.
One thing that I wanted to start adding it, but I really do want to get going at the top of the hour so I can get through all of the stuff that we got to do. And is that, so 1%, and if you take 1% per month, then that's way more than 12% per year, and you do that over. So that's really powerful. But I think that, we also want to make sure that people understand that it's not 1% per month. Some months it's nothing. Some months it's minus 2% or even minus 5%. But you keep doing those things. And sooner or later, and these things are cumulative as well. You're kind of priming your destiny, and you don't know when the cumulative stuff will pay off. I had written thousands of thank you notes before I wrote the note to Monish Pabrai. And he responded. And if I would have given up just before the note to Monish Pabrai, my life would have taken a very different trajectory. So people shouldn't give up. Too often I see people give up. A guy who should know better, with an MBA from a well-known business school, and he's like, he said he's on a job search, it's not going so well. I said, well, how many letters have you sent out? And he said, well, I've sent out 30 letters. And I was like, do you think that's a lot? And he said, why is it not a lot? I said, no, it's not a lot. You can expect a response rate on any piece of direct mail, and the letters you're sending out as a piece of direct mail, of 1%, to use the title of your show. So you say, send out 30 letters, you might not get even one response. Try sending out 300 or 3,000, and then you'll be in business. and 300, you might get 3 letters back. And even then you don't have a good ratio. You get what I'm talking about, but I didn't get into that. We'll get into the next one. Well, this was fun. And everyone, this is short because we had some technical issues, but I'm looking forward very much to the next one, Vishal.
Thanks, Guy, and best of luck for the Berkshire meeting. And I hope you come out of that much wiser, much happier than you are.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you, Guy.